Hey there, comic book fans. I'm John Anderson. I just watched episode 3 of Legends of Tomorrow, and it was pretty good. Keep in mind, I'm going to be going through key plot points from the episode, so if you haven't seen it yet, here is your spoiler warning. And there it goes. Now, this episode has 3 key plot lines. The first of which we have Kendra, who's dying because she has shards of the blade that Vandal Savage used in the battle they had last episode. And it's up to Ray and Dr. Stein to get the shards out. And it was a good opportunity for the Atom to utilize his shrinking powers, and he goes into her bloodstream and takes out these microscopic particles. And we have a very contrived sequence where something happens to his suit and then he freaks out and he's got to get out of there because he doesn't want to feel powerless in this situation. And we get a retread of his backstory where his fiance was killed in front of him and he was kind of helpless and he didn't want to feel helpless anymore, and that's why he created the Atom suit. Dr. Stein's like trying to motivate him, and there's a running gag through the show thus far that Dr. Stein doesn't remember Ray because he was in his class once. And he decides to make this ruse that he does remember him and that he is able to finish the job, and it's kind of a incentive for Ray to finish it. Similar to what we see in the Avengers, where Nick Fury adds the bloody cards to Coulson's death to give them a little punch to unite. So the next plot line is probably my favorite plot line of the episode. You have Leonard Snark trying to steal this emerald that kind of looks very reminiscent of kryptonite. So when I first saw the promo, I was like, oh, is he going to steal kryptonite? That's like cool. But it just turns out it's a generic emerald. And at first we think Snark's going to steal this because he's a thief and he likes to thrill the heist. But it turns out it's a lot more than that. This emerald was stolen by his father, gets him arrested, and then starts a downward spiral that is Leonard's life. So he's trying to avoid that by stealing the emerald for his father and giving it to him. We have probably my favorite scene of the episode where we have Leonard interacting with Leo. Now, I gotta give it to Wentworth Miller. Acting was superb because I really see the struggle that he has, because he's like fascinated that he sees himself, but he's also concerned for himself, and you just see the conflict in his performance, and it really resonated with me. And he gives himself probably the best advice that he would, and it's this idea, don't let anybody hurt you. So he gives his dad the emerald, but as it turns out, 3 days later, his dad sells it to an undercover cop. It gets arrested regardless. And we see this idea that time travel is kind of predetermined, and that really fascinates me, that time is this entity that regardless of what you do, you can't change the future. And I hope that the series kind of explores that a little bit more. Now, the final plot point, we have Sarah and Rip trying to figure out where Vandal Savage fortune is and what he plans to do with Carter's body. Now, it's nice to see that Rip's involved in this episode, because my biggest gripe from the last episode was that Rip didn't have anything to do. He kind of took a backseat and let everybody do their thing. And I was kind of like, what are you doing, Rip? Like, you're the leader of this team. But he has a clear goal in this episode, and we see Sarah struggling with her bloodlust, which, again, something that I wanted to see more of because I thought that'd be an interesting dynamic. But they kind of like throw it away because Rip's kind of like, hey, be better than the bloodlust. And we have a pretty cool scene where Sarah's like, we think she's stabbing this guy multiple times, but it turns out that she's just stabbing the ground around him. She gives Rip this look like, see, I conquered it. Now, as we know from Arrow, bloodlust doesn't work like that. You can't just get over it. So hopefully we'll see her kind of struggle with it more later on in the season, or it might be a scapegoat for the show to be like, hey, Sarah doesn't have bloodlust anymore, like we don't have to worry about that in action scenes with Sarah specifically. Now we find out what they're doing with Carter's body. Apparently his blood kind of shares this immortality that Vandal Savage has to his followers and gives them kind of 100 more years, so that way his followers can continue to follow him through millennia. Then we kind of have a big action set piece where everybody kind of unites to save Rip and Sarah, and usually I love the action set pieces that are on this show. Like, I've been really engaged in them, but this one kind of just felt like, oh, we need an action set piece and here we go. It's also very convenient that everybody kind of has their own plot lines this episode and they just wrapped them all up and they're like, oh, let's go save the rest of the team now. And I was like, it just felt kind of lazy. The episode ends with the team kind of uniting and be like, hey, we can't do stuff on our own anymore. We had to work as a team, which I thought we had this pep talk at the end of the first episode, but apparently we didn't. Because I know you have to divide the team, you can't have the whole team working on one thing, but I hope it all connects in some way, because that really didn't happen in this episode. But that's my thoughts on episode 3. If you guys like this video, be sure to share and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook at John Ryan Anderson or on Instagram at God Stage Fright. And remember guys, as always, comics do deserve a second look.